Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Down the Road with me, Joel Heitkamp. I have a couple stories to tell. Last night in Bismarck, I don't know, they argued until about 11:30, 11:45. They had all of these people lined up, and the big argument was about whether or not they should put a mask mandate in Bismarck. And, the mayor wasn't for it. One other council member wasn't for it. But in the end, it was a 3-2 vote to have Bismarck match what was going on in Fargo and Grand Forks and in Minot, and to say, you know what, we're losing here. We've got to get masks on, and we've got to try to slow this spread of COVID down. It was pretty spirited. When you looked at some of the clips of what happened, it kind of left you shaking your head. Now, I believe I would have voted yes. I would have voted yes. Let me be clear about that. But I would have been mad that I had to vote yes. I think that directive needs to come from the state on down. And this whole push for local decision, where does that end? I'm from the country. And so if you have a township say yes and then the other township say no, it again leaves you scratching your head. And I think that Governor Burgum he's been remiss. I think that he hasn't done what he needs to do to lead through this pandemic. And Bismarck last night was a perfect example of that. I'm going to bring in my first guest. I have known him for a long, long time. As a young man, one of the reasons I got active in politics was because of State Senator Jim Dutzenrod. Senator Dutzenrod, good to have you on Down the Road.
Well, you bet, Joel. Glad to be here. Thank you. Yep.
So, we were talking about the military one day, and we were talking about the role that you played in the military. You never, in all the years that I've known you, you've never really wore that on your sleeve. You've never bragged about it. You've never even brought it into conversation, as a politician might do. And I've always respected that, but today on Down the Road, I'm going to make you talk about it. So, you're from the Vietnam era. Talk to me about what your role was.
Well, thank you, Joel. No, I normally don't spend much time talking about it because it doesn't really relate very well to, what I do today as a farmer, as a legislator. But it was a very interesting time. The Vietnam War was going on. I got at my first duty station. It was a Navy base in Southern California, right on the Mexican border, El Centro, NAF. And it was about the middle of 1968. And all we did there, at least the role I had, was test parachute systems. And so it was really an unusual assignment. I got to meet some of the most interesting and colorful characters I think I've ever worked with. But when I got there, our engineering division was cargo, man carrying, and high-speed recovery. And John McCain was a familiar figure to people that I worked with. It was a Navy base. He was a Navy pilot. A lot of the folks I worked with knew a lot about John McCain. They knew that he'd been taken prisoner. They knew that he broke some bones when he had this ejection in the ejection from the aircraft. And so a lot of our work was about recovering pilots and trying to develop systems that would allow us some way to try to get these pilots back. We experimented with a lot of ideas. We also did a lot of work with cargo, but the thing at that time, with our pilots being shot down and taken prisoner, there was just a lot of heartache and anguish at knowing that they were being mistreated as prisoners. And what could we do to try help with that? So we experimented with all kinds of contraptions and ideas. When you have an ejection, could you have a flyaway glider? Could you have a hot air balloon? Could you have a little propane tank and hold these people up and allow them to be airborne for long enough to come back and try to snag them or snare them? And then, so we worked on that, and along with a lot of other things. And I participated in a lot of these programs. And we, with cargo, we also set a world's record for the most weight pulled on and extracted from a C-130. If you can believe 50,000 pounds, that's a lot to pull out of an airplane. But it was an interesting time for me. John McCain, I think when I left the military at the end, he was still in prison. I'd been there 4 years and at this duty station doing this work. So he was a very revered figure and to my mind, a very heroic figure. And I just think that, we went through a difficult time as a country, having these aircraft drivers, these pilots taken prisoner. And I left there feeling we'd done some good. We improved our extraction and ejection systems. And a lot of the applications that were unusual were because of that war, the kind of different things that we did with parachutes. So it was an interesting time, and I had some great experiences there, and glad to have been able to be part of trying to help with what we were doing.
You know, you grew up in Wyndmere. Your father, Ralph, served in the legislature. Your family had a history of being in the implement dealership and farming. And farming is,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you love doing, Jim. You always have loved to be a farmer. But, you know, you get into the service and you're jumping out of planes. And you just use the word experiment. Right. You know, if somebody's going to tell me, hey, you got to jump out of this plane and we're experimenting here, I'm going to be a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. What was that like when you grew up the way you did, and the next thing you know, you're jumping out of planes?
Well, I mean, they used to tell us that if you're not feeling nervous, then you're something wrong. You know, it's like you should feel that way. But we had in the test programs, we had torso dummies. We'd run through tests. These were dummies that had no arms or legs. They were just torso dummies, and they'd throw them out. And then they had the thing called articulated dummies, where they have dummies that had arms and legs. And then they had the test called the live dummies, and that's where we came in, where we'd actually do that, you know, put this stuff on and try and make it work. And by that time in the program, these things were pretty safe. And, you know, military, it's safety all the time. Triple checks before we got on the airplane. You know, during the time I was there, I don't think we had one serious accident.
So you mentioned John McCain a number of times, and the hero that he was, and I know he was to many men and women that served in the Vietnam era, because you know what? He wouldn't come back until his fellow soldiers that were in the Hanoi Hilton also got to come back, which I think both you and I respect immensely. But did the equipment work for John McCain? Did it work? And you know, was that something that your group was concerned about?
That's right. You know, an ejection from an airplane is a violent thing. Sometimes they're traveling at 300 miles an hour or more when this ejection takes place. The canopies get blown off. There's an explosion that forces the seat up through the canopy, knocks the canopy off, and there's a lot of stress on everything at that time. And I think McCain broke both arms and one leg, and he landed in the water. And he was lucky he got out of the seat. He was strapped into the seat when it hit the water, and he went under it. He was able to get out of it, came to the surface. He was taken prisoner by the people there, and he was beaten before he was taken off and put in prison there. But and we tried to improve the safety by trying to find ways to make that a less violent act and cushion, put absorbers and you know, there's also a system on aircraft called a 0-0 system, where you can eject while you're moving at 0 forward speed and 0 altitude. That is, the airplane can be parked stationary on the ground, and you can get out of it if there's a fire or if there's something about to blow up or an emergency of some kind. You can get out, and they have a spreader ring on the skirt of the canopy that when the pilot is injected into the air, the spreader ring goes off and it spreads the skirt out, and so there's a full canopy under the pilot right away. So there are systems that are in place that we've worked on, and some work and some don't work. There's so many forces at work in an ejection sequence that it's very hard to have something that's dependable, that will work all the time, that can take that. So what happened to John McCain? It's not unusual in an ejection to have something like an injury, a pretty serious injury. It is a violent act. So we did some things that we thought we could improve that, but it's still today considered something you really don't want to do. And you know, sometimes you have to do it, like in the McCain case. But we did work on that and tried to improve it. I think things are better now than they used to be.
So, Senator Dutzenrod, when you look at all of this, it's called service to your country, and it's called public service. I mean, you have a real history of this. I only have a couple of minutes left, but you're running again for the state Senate. How does that go in a COVID year? Who are you running with? How is this working out?
Well, you know, every election is different, and this is really, really different. We can't get people together. We can't do the fundraising that we normally do. We can't have the rallies that we would normally do. We didn't do any door-to-door campaigning. We are doing some literature drops where we just drop stuff off at people's homes. So this is, I think it's an unknown for us, is what does that do to the outcome of the election? Does it favor some people over others, or are both sides sort of handicapped the same way? We're not sure. This was going to be all new for us, but you just have to deal with it like people in certain occupations are trying to deal with the problems they've got. It's important at election time to make contact with the voters as much as possible, person to person, and that's how COVID spreads, person to person. And I've got two running mates that have been really wonderful, Alan Peterson in Foreman. He's got a lot of experience with rural education, spent a great share of his life helping these small schools to be able to stay current and to be able to provide quality education. And I'm running with John Hokena. He's a cattle man from Dickey County. He's also a county commissioner in Dickey County, but he would be a wonderful legislator because we have so few people in the legislature that really have working knowledge of the livestock and cattle industry. And he would have instant credibility if he were elected. Those two candidates, House candidates, I'm really happy with them.
Well, there's a reason people respect you. And sure, Jim Dutzenrod is from my home area, and sure, I'm a supporter of Jim Dutzenrod, but you just heard exactly why. Jim, thanks for coming on Down the Road.
Yep, you bet. Yep, you betcha, Joel. Thanks for the time.
You bet. These races, ladies and gentlemen, are hard things. When you can't knock on a door, when you can't go to a parade, I've ran them. For 14 years, I served in the same seat that Jim has. When we come back, let's go to Human Services right after this.
As the mayor of Bismarck, I invite you to join together today and stand united in the fight to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Case counts are steadily on the rise in the Bismarck-Mandan metro area, so please do your part. Protect yourself and others by wearing a mask when you're not at home. During the pandemic response, scientists have determined wearing a mask is a benefit to you and to those around you. This help keeps others from getting sick and may lessen the severity of illness if you were infected with COVID-19. We're all in this together. So let's get kids back to school, preserve our local economy, and keep our community strong. Let's show everyone how we come together to keep Bismarck the safe, resilient community we know and love. For more information, visit health.nd.gov/coronavirus. That's health.nd.gov/coronavirus.
Beck Communications is honored to be recently recognized with 3 Broadband Now awards. Beck Communications Cooperative was awarded in the categories of Top Internet Speeds Nationwide, Top 3 Fastest Internet Providers in North Dakota, and North Dakota's #1 Fastest Fiber Provider. It's only through the support of our members and customers that Beck Fiber delivers award-winning speeds and service. Thank you, Beck Communications Cooperative members and customers, for your years of continued support.
Introducing Accord Comfort Sleep Systems, a better way to sleep. We offer you 5 different models to give you the perfect choice of support and body comfort. Every model begins with our exclusive Accord Comfort Reflex Layer. This ensures proper spinal alignment and a deep down body relief. Our 8-inch Whisper Breeze provides a medium firm feel, and our 10-inch Gentle Night model has a quilted top, giving you a medium plush comfort. Both use Outlast fabric on the top of your mattress, ensuring that your body temperature is not too hot and not too cold. Our Copper Rest Sleep Series is our premier mattress, offering your choice of firm, plush, and luxury plush. Every model uses copper-infused gel latex and provides all the health benefits of copper. Accord Comfort mattresses are handcrafted in the USA and come with a 60-night sleep guarantee. You're going to love sleeping with us. Order today exclusively at accordsleep.com or Tom's Home Furnishings in beautiful downtown Harvey.
Is your business phone system outdated and expensive to maintain? Most large VoIP companies leave you on hold or struggling through online support and training for your employees. With Beck Connect, you always have fast, friendly, local support. Familiar faces with the know-how to keep you connected. Take advantage of the newest technology in voice calling, video conferencing, and virtual meeting rooms. Beck Connect gives you all the features you need with no upfront investment and no obsolete hardware or software ever again. Simplify your communications. Choose local. Choose Beck Connect.
Welcome back to Down the Road. I got to tell you, he's in the eye of the hurricane, is where he is. Chris Jones. Now, who's Chris? Well, he's the executive director of the Department of Human Services for the state of North Dakota, and he joins us right now. Chris, good to have you on Down the Road.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
When I say, in the eye of the hurricane, there was a lot of news that came out in relation to the federal government disagreeing with you and what you were doing on a state level when it comes to our nursing homes. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So really what happened is the feds really didn't have visitation guidelines when they locked everybody down back in March. And so we worked really hard to get visitation, not only in skilled nursing facilities, but our basic care and assisted living. And it wasn't until recently that the feds came out with visitation guidelines that were more restrictive as it relates to having positive healthcare workers. But the other thing that's really hurting the state of North Dakota too is they're doing visitation based on county positivity rates. And quite frankly, that really shut almost everyone down. I think as of this morning, we only have one skilled nursing facility per the feds that can allow indoor visitation.
Well, and we'd all like that. We'd all like to go into those nursing homes and visit the people we love. I have a situation in my family. I have no doubt that individuals in nursing homes as well. North Dakota is an elderly state in so many ways, but I have to ask you this. Should we be going into those nursing homes?
That's a good question. I think, early on there was a lot of concern that visitation was causing the virus to come into skilled nursing facilities. Based on the data that we have right now, visitation isn't necessarily the issue. Obviously, it's one more level of risk that we introduce when we have visitors come from the outside. But frankly, it's coming in just based on the amount of community spread there is. And quite frankly, communities who are not interested in taking this seriously or setting priorities. I mean, I think that's another way to put it is, if you want to visit someone in a long-term care facility, your community, you can't have a lot of spread because that's how it's going to get in. These healthcare workers, a lot of people ask me, Chris, are they not doing what they're supposed to be doing? The vast majority of them are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And they've been doing this for 7 months. They've been day in and day out, donning and doffing, working extra hours. So, but at the same time, to your original question, we have to figure out a way to do visitation. I mean, it is part of we're human beings. We need to see family, and with, the holidays coming up, it's going to be tough.
I know a number of people, and I've done it myself, where you're looking through a window and you're trying to communicate through a window, and nobody likes it. I get it. Nobody likes it. But the COVID is getting into these nursing homes somehow. You mentioned the workers that come, and to me, it's one of two things. It's the workers, whether it be janitorial or whether it be nurses or nurses' aides. So let's talk about workers. I get that, and then the other way would be visitors. And so to ask you whether or not we should have visitors, has that been determined by the federal government? Have they just flat out said, look, if you want your Medicare and Medicaid dollars, you're not going to have visitors?
Yes, they have for skilled nursing facilities only. So yes, that is essentially what they've said. And I'll tell you, I mean, people want to argue about whether or not this is right or wrong. But you look at some other states like the one that was brought up to me recently was Massachusetts. They have a positivity rate of 1.38%, and now they're opening up their skilled nursing facilities for visitation. So it's like, we've just got to figure out and as a community on how to be smarter as it relates to preventing the spread.
So then it begs the question of the individuals that are going in and losing, kind of that right to go in, which all of us want. I mean, all of us want that to happen. So, we don't have a mask policy in the state of North Dakota. We don't have, I can't go to Bismarck. I can't go to Grand Forks. I can't go to Fargo or Grand Forks without wearing a mask. But there's no penalty for it. But the mayors have said, or I shouldn't say the mayors, Bismarck just went through a long fight and he disagreed with it. But the leaders in the community, the political leaders in these communities have said, you have to wear a mask in our community. The problem I see it is that, you know, I and others have pushed so hard to keep rural nursing homes open. And these rural nursing homes live in communities that are very cavalier when it comes to mask wearing. Would it help your job? Would it help your job for people to go in and see grandpa and grandma and mom and dad if those communities would just embrace a mask policy?
I mean, I guess yes, is the short answer, but it's really not about my job. Again, this is about, I want everyone to see their family. I mean, it's not only the family's rights, it's these residents' rights. They, you know, they only have so much time left on earth, and we're going to lock them up, you know, towards the end of their life. And they want to see their loved ones. They want to share their stories. So, I mean, I guess my job, hard weather or not, I really don't care. I just want people to see their family.
One of the things that the state of North Dakota has done that I really respect is they've gotten rid of this whole, hey, they had pre-existing conditions kind of thrust upon. And to me, that was a really good thing. I don't know if you played a role in that. I know that Governor Burgum came out and said, you know what, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to put that aside. And I think that is so wise, because if you look at anyone, you know, anyone certainly 40 years old or older, they're going to be a pre-existing condition. And so I've got a friend that was 53 years old that passed away from COVID. I don't know what his pre-existing condition was. I do not know. But I do know this. He died from COVID, and his family didn't get to see him before he died. So with the 30 seconds we have left, I want to thank you for that, and I want to give you a chance to speak to it.
Oh, well, you...
Yeah, I mean, what do you say, Chris? I mean, what do you say? I mean, there's nothing you can do. And I realize it. I get it. I respect it. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on and speaking to the people you serve. And I want to thank you for that service. I really appreciate it.
There's a lot of people working a lot harder than me, though. I promise you that.
Well, I've heard about you, and I doubt that. I think you're working just as hard as them. So appreciate you coming down the road with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to get an opportunity to talk about Measure 1. What is Measure 1? Is it a good thing, or Measure 2? What are these measures? We'll talk about it when we come back.
I just went in for a regular mammogram, and I found out that I had a little tumor.
Through the exam and the biopsy, it was determined that I had cancer.
I got a call from one of my doctors that I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
After 5 years, they found a local reoccurrence.
The first thing you hear when you're told you have a cancer, it's a little daunting because you don't know where to go with it.
Since 1999, in a partnership between CHI St. Alexius Health and Sanford Health Bismarck, the Bismarck Cancer Center has provided the most advanced radiation therapies and holistic support services for cancer patients and their loved ones for 20 years.
I've been at the Bismarck Cancer Center since it started. I actually was in the basement of Med Center 1 before, when we had old machines and old equipment. And thankfully, the two hospitals at the time, St. Alexius and Med Center 1, joined forces to create the Bismarck Cancer Center.
I walk in the door, I get nothing but hugs, and I was marveled at them. I mean, I thought it was the best place in the world.
The staff is unbelievably compassionate, and they explain everything to you.
Everybody's genuinely concerned about your well-being, and the level of care is just top-notch. The Cancer Center just does such an amazing job of helping people.
To me and my family, the Cancer Center means life. It's given me the ability to live out my life with my family, my wife, my children, my grandchildren.
Because of them, I'm 2 years out, get to move on with my life, make a difference now for other people.
I would recommend this center because the minute you walk through that door, they've got your back.
This center means so much to me and to the people that are in this building, and we just want to keep giving it back to the community and providing for them what they need.
I'm Katie. I've been cancer-free for 2 years.
I'm Steve, and I've been cancer-free for 4 years.
I've been cancer-free for 10 years.
10 years.
11 years.
15 years.
My name is Lainey, and I've been cancer-free for 18 years.
Bismarck Cancer Center, your partner against cancer for 20 years.
Who do you trust with your digital life? Not all cloud backup providers keep your data truly private. Beck Cloud Backup uses advanced multi-layer encryption to keep your family photos, videos, and sensitive business documents secure and only for your eyes. Your Beck Lightband Internet service already includes 50 gigs of free storage to keep your digital life safe and secure. Call us at 701-475-2361 to start using your Beck Cloud Backup today.
Welcome back to Down the Road with me, Joel Heitkamp. I could read this resume and it would go on forever, but the truth of the matter is this is somebody who is back active in a lot of things. Ellie Shockley joins us right now. She's an education researcher. That's the short term we're going to use. Ellie, good to have you on Down the Road.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
One of the reasons that I asked you to come on is I don't think that people read through the measures. I don't think that people take the time. It's down ballot. They've already made their mind up on the big issues. And of course, the presidential race is the one that's sucking all the oxygen out of the room. But I want to talk to you about Measure 2 and what Measure 2 does. Why don't you explain that to them?
All right, so Measure 2 came out of the legislature. It was a concurrent resolution in the 2019 legislative session. And essentially, it would change our state constitution. It would change the part of our state constitution, Article 3, the powers reserved to the people. And in that section, it would basically insert the legislature into a part of our powers. Essentially, we, as North Dakotans, we are allowed to generate constitutional amendments as an initiated measure, put it on the ballot and have people vote on it. And if it passes, our state constitution is modified. Measure 2 would end up changing the constitution so that the legislature could veto our votes. So when we have constitutional measures initiated by the people that then the people pass with a majority vote in an election, if the subsequent legislative session, just a couple months later, if during that the legislature wants to vote it down, it's a veto. And they can do this for any reason, according to Measure 2. There are no guardrails on the reasoning for vetoing our preferences. What would happen then is after the veto, the measure would go back on the ballot the next election and folks would vote on it one more time. So there is that opportunity for veto override. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that that opportunity for veto override is not really that great. It's a really steep hill to climb. It requires a lot of resources to campaign 2 elections in a row. And also, I think it will confuse voters because they'll be like, didn't we already vote on this? What's going on? And we know that confusion results in abstention or not voting on the measure or pushes people to no votes. And so confusion is not a good thing in the context of elections. And I've done some research on that topic. So that's why I'm confident in saying that. So our coalition to defeat Measure 2, Protect ND, does not like this measure.
So for 14 years, I was in one of those chairs. I served in the state Senate. Never would have voted for this. Never would have voted for this. And there are things that passed as initiated measures that I lost on when I voted either for or against those. Marcy's Law being one of those. I thought Marcy's Law was absolutely ridiculous. I never, on my radio show, I spoke over and over again about why people shouldn't have voted for Marcy's Law, but they did. And it passed. And I have to respect that. The majority of North Dakotans said, we want Marcy's Law. And of course, we've got the Ethics Commission, which is something I did support and something I did want to see passed. The point I'm building to here, Ellie, is the fact that it's the purest form of government. People getting together collectively going around the legislature, I realize that, but saying, you didn't do this, we want this. And so is this just strictly a power grab by the legislature because they're ticked off they lost?
I do largely see it that way. And I think it particularly illustrates that it's a power grab when we consider the part of the Constitution that is being, that they are attempting to change to insert themselves. It seems strange to me that we would articulate a power of the legislature in Article 3, powers reserved to the people. That's not the section of the state constitution where we articulate the powers of the legislature. So it seems inappropriate to me. And I do think it's a power grab. Our Constitution is pretty clear that the entire legitimacy of our state government comes from the people and their priorities and their wants. So there's not this added legitimacy to the legislature above and beyond our preferences for them to do whatever they want. They're truly there to represent us and our desires. And so when we say, no, this is actually what we want, it really is appropriate to respect that. That is how our system of representation is supposed to work. You know, North Dakota has a special tradition of a predominantly, Republican representational system, but we have this pathway of direct democracy when people really need to make their voices heard through another route. And I think that's really special and should be protected. And let's keep this power that's reserved to the people with the people. Let's not let legislators grab it from us.
Let me give you one example of something that really ticked me off. The people of North Dakota voted in, by initiated measure, they voted in a 6.5% excise tax on oil. And it made a lot of money. It went boom, it went bust, it went as the oil industry went. I get that. And it's going to continue to do that, and you got a budget in accordance to that. But the people of North Dakota said 6.5% of that revenue is going to go to people of North Dakota. It's going to go to schools, it's going to go to roads, it's going to go to bridges. And the legislature, as soon as they could, or as soon as they got basically the support by the oil industry to reverse that, did. And they took it down to 5%. And that, we're talking about at the height of what was going on in the Bakken, we're talking about a loss to the state of $700,000 a day. Now, when the legislature goes around it, it can be that serious. It can. I would argue that the oil industry and the power that they have as lobbyists really drove the bus on that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, to me, it just illustrates an example of how we do have interference from out-of-state entities when it comes to our elections, but it's just not unique to ballot measures in any way, either for or against them. These influences exist in all kinds of ways, that we have a lot of outside money and influence and endorsements when it comes to candidates for the legislature, and a lot of folks who have been successfully elected in the legislature. And I just think frank discussion about the role that we want outside influence to have is important and is not unique to ballot measures. I know that the proponents of this measure often describe the measure as protecting the Constitution from outside influence. And I'm very comfortable with the discussion of outside influence. And let's apply that lens to not just measures, but our elected officials' elections and the decisions they make in office. So I just want a fairness of that discussion. But of course, I do push back on the claim that this measure fixes any out-of-state excessive interference, because it actually doesn't. All it does is give the legislature a new veto over the voice of the people, and its scope does not cover anything to do with outside influence or forces. It also doesn't educate, it doesn't allow for any resources for educating citizens on where measure is coming from, what it really means, what a yes note or vote note means. So if citizens need to better understand out of state influence, we could have legislation or just policies and procedures in place that help citizens with that. I mean, I am totally supportive of citizens understanding better what their options are. And, you talk about Marcy's Law. We all comfortably talk about Marcy's Law as problematic. And so we know now the majority of North Dakotan voters liked the spirit of it. But it could have been possible to have resources in place where North Dakotans could have had an opportunity to better actualize the way that the policy was written and could have been a better fit for us. So I'm just supportive of all these discussions, and I hope they continue long after the election. But yeah, I agree that it's not a simple thing, and it's not just this one-sided thing where only outside influences are impacting our measures. North Dakotans know what they want, and maybe sometimes just need a little help on getting the language and process just right.
We only have a couple minutes left, but I want to make this point as well. We wouldn't have medical marijuana if it wasn't for the initiated measure. I mean, we wouldn't have medical marijuana helping people and taking away their pain. And the nation is moving there. In fact, they're moving towards the legalization of marijuana because they're looking at their prisons. And quite frankly, many of the legislators know it's hypocrites because they've smoked marijuana at some point in their life. But the conservative legislature would never have passed that. The people did. And you and I both know they would have reversed it.
Yeah, and I do think that a lot of trust has been broken for a lot of ordinary citizens when it comes to marijuana-related policy, and so that's part of this too. There's this just discomfort between citizens and legislators, including conservative and Republican constituents who want more relaxed marijuana policy, and essentially, yeah, folks are using the ballot measure process to combat that. And I'll also say that I think that the legalization of marijuana, like beyond anything medicinal, actually has a lot of potential for success in North Dakota. And I think that it was Measure 3 in 2018 was the legalization of marijuana measure. It did fail, but I did some analyses to try to identify why. And the policy itself was really complex.
Yeah. And
the language to describe the policy on the ballot was extremely complex, measurably complex.
It went too far. I mean, it went too far. It was trying to take away I've got about 30 seconds left. Are you going to give me a sneak preview and tell me how you're going to vote on Measure 1?
I don't want to talk about how I'm filling out my bubble because I just don't see that as my role in this. I see my role as helping voters know how to vote in Measure 1 according to accurate information and what they think is best.
I told you she was smart.
Yeah.
All right. Ellie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
She's right about Measure 2. And I will tell you what I'm going to do on Measure 1. I'm going to vote no on Measure 1. Measure 1 expands the State Board of Higher Education, and we don't need it. We don't need it. It's about political patronage, and it's about, hey, I put you on the State Board of Higher Education kind of crap, and I don't support that. And so Ellie's wise to pick the fights that she picks, and she's doing a great job on this. When we come back, let's head to the health department and talk about what we're doing with COVID there.
Bismarck Central, 4800.
4800, go ahead.
Requesting social services on-call team.
Stand by. 4800 social services requesting additional information.
You can advise social services that we have an 18-month-old female who was in a residence with a mother now being transported to medical care for overdose.
Trusting your digital life to faceless tech giants can be risky. Will they keep your family and business information truly safe from prying eyes? If you subscribe to local Beck Lightband internet service, you already have Beck Cloud Backup. Beck Cloud Backup is the safest, most private cloud storage for all your family memories, schoolwork, and business documents. Call 701-475-2361 to start using your free space on Beck Cloud Backup today.
You just might find the home of your dreams this weekend by watching the Alliance Real Estate Tour of Homes Sundays at 6 p.m. and Wednesdays at 7 on Beck. featuring properties from Bismarck, Mandan, Minot, and surrounding areas. The Alliance Real Estate Tour of Homes presents desirable properties that are for sale, lets you meet your Alliance realtors, and provides critical insights into local happenings from community and business leaders. Join us this Sunday evening at 6 or Wednesday at 7 for the Alliance Real Estate Tour of Homes on Beck.
Today's households have more digital devices than ever before. More links to family, business, education, and entertainment. Beck Communications spent over 10 years building North Dakota's fastest fiber optic internet service. Beck Lightband Internet, outpacing speeds in large cities nationwide. Lightband Internet handles all your digital needs without throttling your connection to the world. Beck Communications, valuable digital connections in rural North Dakota.
As the mayor of Bismarck, I invite you to join together to get our kids back to school, preserve our local economy, and keep Bismarck safe, strong, and resilient. A community task force has been launched to slow the spread of COVID-19 in our community. We're all in this together. Protect yourself and others by doing your part. Wear a mask when you're out and about, and slow the spread of COVID-19. For more information, visit health.nd.gov/coronavirus.
Tim Wiedrich is our guest right now. He is Department of Health Section Chief for Health Preparedness and Response, which we've been talking about the eye of the hurricane. I think Tim would admit his days have gotten long. Tim, good to have you on Down the Road.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You know, the numbers, they've got national attention. 178 currently hospitalized. That's up 17 from yesterday. Total cases right now, 6,247. I was one of those cases. I know what it's like going through COVID. How do we get our arms around this?
Well, I think that the strongest thing that we can do is to make sure that we're following through with social distancing and masking. Those are the tools that we have available to us right now. And those tools have a direct impact, not just on the people that we have immediate contact with, but kind of a chain reaction. And so when we're looking at the hospital numbers, for example, and the bed availability in hospitals, or when we think about long-term care facilities and how they're being impacted, all of that has a direct bearing on the level of community transmission. And again, the way we get our arms around this is by masking and maintaining social distancing. Obviously, there's a vaccine that's coming, but it's not here yet. And the tools we have right now are masking and social distancing.
So, Tim, if we get in trouble back in my neck of the woods, what ends up happening is, you know, you bust a finger, you bust an arm, the first place they're going to take us is to Breckenridge, Minnesota. If really bad, they're going to take us to Fargo. You know, those regional centers, those places that people go to. When you look at these small rural hospitals, and in my area, I just mentioned Breckenridge, we could talk Oaks, we could talk Lisbon, we could talk a lot of the ones, and you know exactly where they're at. Are they ready for this, or is this something where everybody has to rely on Fargo and Bismarck and Minot and Grand Forks and places like that?
So I think the shortest answer to this is that we've got to look at the hospitals as a complete system. When we think about the hospital bed availability, obviously what we call tertiary care centers, the ones that are in the large cities, are normally places that we transport people to when there are higher levels of care that are needed. But COVID presents a wide variety of patients, and so in order to maintain bed capacity, and staff capacity, there's a process where patients are going to be transferred, and they are being transferred between facilities depending on the level of care that they need. And so as patients continue to need more sophisticated care, those will tend to come to the tertiary care centers. As those patients that need lesser levels of care, those can be transferred to critical access hospitals or other locations within the state.
You mentioned staff. Are they wearing out? I mean, their life since March has completely changed. I have a wife that's very active in the health community. I have a daughter and a brother-in-law that you know, see people in clinics. My wife is very active in hospice and home health. The point I'm trying to make is their lives have changed since this. Everybody's life has changed, but they're on the front line. And so those workers, which we already were short of, are they wearing out, Tim?
Well, again, I think that the fair and honest answer is everybody's tired, and healthcare workers are no exception. In terms of how they are on the front line and that we are having to basically have the entire workforce available, we need every nurse, we need every EMS provider, we need every certified nursing assistant, we need the entire system. And so as we're working our way through this emergency, there is no question that people are being called on to do extraordinary things, both in terms of the hours that they're seeing, but not just that, the impact of the patients that are being seen within these facilities as, for example, the COVID deaths are occurring, that has a profound impact on the individuals that are with those patients. And it's not just COVID. We're seeing hospitalizations that have risen across the board, whether it's a medical emergency such as heart attacks or strokes or even trauma, that all of those hospitalization rates are higher and contributing to the healthcare stress.
So you mentioned masks as well. I got to ask you, because you're in a position of authority here and you have the ear of some pretty powerful people, should North Dakota have a mask mandate?
Well, I know that that's an extremely controversial topic and that there are large kind of segments that have varying views on that. The reality is it doesn't take a mandate to cause somebody to wear a mask. And so setting that question aside, whether there is or there isn't a mandate, the bottom line is that as we have a responsibility to the rest of society, to the rest of people that we care about, and the impact that we're having on others, it's important that we wear a mask, and we don't need a mandate in order to do that.
Well, Tim, let me push back on that a little bit. And it's not going to shock you that I'm going to. But, you know, you say it doesn't take a mandate to wear a mask. I see people all over the place without a mask. But if I go to Costco, if I go to Walmart, if I go to Dan's Super Value or Hornbacher's or one of the places in the community of Fargo, everybody's got a mask on. Because you know what? They're not going to let you in the place. They don't want you in the place. They have a mask mandate. Sure, you're going to see one here or there. You're going to. But isn't that an example of, and maybe it's about commerce. Maybe commerce needs to do this and take the lead. But isn't that an example of where mandates do work?
So I think that the controversy is centering around whether that's a governmental mandate or not. And there's no question that the public health recommendation that what we want in public health are people to wear masks. And however that process ends up working forward is really important that masks be worn. But the controversy is going to continue. Public health by and of itself is not going to be in a position to create the mandate. It's either going to happen from a political standpoint at a local level or a state level or potentially even at federal levels. And that's where the controversy is at currently in terms of how that should move forward.
We have just a little over a minute left. So Dr. Birx came to Bismarck, and she's going around the nation talking to people about just what you're talking about, encouraging people to wear masks, socially distance. But she did comment while she was in North Dakota that she hasn't seen any community that doesn't wear masks more than what Bismarck does. So are we failing?
Well, the short answer, again, for me is yes. We talk a lot about how we care about each other, that we have, many people espouse Christian values and how we have those values. But at the end of the day, we're not demonstrating that. At the end of the day, when we're having this low utilization of masks, I don't know how we explain that difference between this caring attitude that we espouse to and yet failing to take this very simple precaution.
Well, I can tell you this, that there's people in my life that if we end up in a debate about masks, I'm not going to convince them. I'm not. And these are friends. These are people that just simply won't. They see it as a personal freedom. They see it as all that. And I'm wondering if they get to a point where someone they love ends up with COVID, because I've had it. It's not good. It's not good. I wonder if that doesn't change things. And I wonder if, because North Dakota's cases are so high, Tim, that we're not going to see more of that.
And again, if that in fact is what it takes, then again, it's a sad commentary, because this is in fact predictable. The numbers are moving the wrong direction. It's within our power, within our ability as individuals to make those decisions to do social distancing, not attend large events, and to wear masks. And so it would take a tremendous toll if in fact it takes that level of convincing.
Tim,
so let's hope that that's not where we're going.
Tim, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. It's like you're in Louisiana. I mean, you are in a storm right now. And, you know, it's, I don't know how you do it, man. I don't, but I appreciate the fact that you're out there trying to do what you do.
Well, and again, I want to thank the entire public health and medical response team and all of the members that are assisting with this effort.
So here's what Tim just told you. Wear your mask. Wear your mask and worry about the person next to you, because you're wearing your mask for one reason, to protect the other person, not yourself. Let's come back and talk foreign policy right after this.
He once won a spelling bee in an ancient language that he did not speak. He is the only man to ever earn extra credit on an IQ exam. His academic degrees are considered legitimate spending currency in 22 nations, 2 principalities, and at Chick-fil-A restaurants in the United States and Western Canada.
I do not always engage with education programming, but when I do, it is the Dr. Duke Show.
Stay educated with the Dr. Duke Show, weekdays at 4 p.m. on Beck News.
Introducing Accord Comfort Sleep Systems, a better way to sleep. We offer you 5 different models to give you the perfect choice of support and body comfort. Every model begins with our exclusive Accord Comfort Reflex Layer. This ensures proper spinal alignment and a deep down body relief. Our 8-inch Whisper Breeze provides a medium firm feel, and our 10-inch Gentle Night model has a quilted top, giving you a medium plush comfort. Both use Outlast fabric on the top of your mattress, ensuring that your body temperature is not too hot and not too cold. Our Copper Rest Sleep Series is our premier mattress, offering your choice of firm, plush, and luxury plush. Every model uses copper-infused gel latex and provides all the health benefits of copper. Accord Comfort mattresses are handcrafted in the USA and come with a 60-night sleep guarantee. You're going to love sleeping with us. Order today exclusively at accordsleep.com or Tom's Home Furnishings in beautiful downtown Harvey.
You're looking for secure private cloud storage, but who can you trust? Big tech companies don't always keep your family photos, videos, and sensitive business information away from prying eyes. Your local Beck Lightband Internet Services comes with 50 gigs of Beck Cloud Backup, free. Hometown service with top-tier security to keep your data truly safe and private. Get your 50 gigs free today. Call 701-475-2361 and ask about Beck Cloud Backup.
My name is Rich Shook, and I lost my best friend in a grain bin accident.
Some of the emotional scars that when these incidences happen just resonates throughout the community like dropping a rock in a pond. I guess I'll never forget. At least the last moments we shared. That's why I think this is so important to get out there to people, is people think that it can happen to you, and it can. The time it would take you to just kiss a loved one, and your life is over. I believe it's unacceptable.
This message provided by North Dakota Farmers Union.
Here on Down the Road, we're going to continue to do what we did today. We're going to bring you newsmakers. We're going to bring you individuals that are the hot topics of the day, and they can speak to them. You saw that today. You did. But one of the things that is really going on out there right now is a debate about farm policy. It's way under the radar. It really is. It's way under the radar because of the fact you've got COVID, you got a presidential race. But look inside those presidential races, or race, I should say. Look inside that and ask yourself which one of those individuals is stronger on farm policy. I'm not a tariff guy. And you know what? Democrats have abused tariffs in the past, as I think this administration has abused tariffs. So I'm not going to pretend that this is strictly a partisan issue. It's not. But what I'm not for in one bit, one iota, is using farmers as a tool for other industries. Because farmers paid for it. We've gone through a couple of years now of crappy prices. Now you can say, well, the government made us whole. They injected money in. For example, 2 years ago, for every bushel of soybeans, they gave farmers $1.65. Didn't make them completely whole, but it did put a couple bucks in their pocket. I get that. I understand it. But where did that money come from? You know where it came from you, the taxpayer. So let's just be honest about that. That just goes on to debt. Farmers took their own money and they put it collectively together. It was called a checkoff. And so much a bushel, you know what? We're going to put that into the hopper here. Then we're going to take you and we're going to ship you overseas. You're going to go to China. You're going to go to Japan. You're going to go to Mexico. And you're going to help develop markets. You're going to help develop relationships and the type of thing that's going to make sure that they trust us and we can trust them. But tariffs wrecked that. They did, to the point where China now is building ports down in Brazil because they're the preferred provider of soybeans. They are. And the Mexican government is looking at new providers when it comes to corn as well. That's what tariffs do. We did all this in the name of steel, right? We wanted the steel industry and the coal industry and the tech industry to do better. Well, how did it go? How did it work? Not so good. We're making less steel now than what we were 4 years ago. And we've had these tariffs and we've had to use taxpayer money to subsidize the industries that are around us. So that didn't work. We could look at a higher soybean price now and we can say, look, it really worked. It didn't. And if you take a look at what the prices were under the Obama administration, take a look at when the new shops were built, take a look at all the new pickups, take a look at all the new grain bins. That's how I gauge money. It's been good going down the road with you, and it's always good riding with you.